accredits you. So who are the bodies who are accrediting bodies for different types of agencies in healthcare? So obviously I focus on senior care, which yes, there are seniors that go to the hospital, but we're talking more about home care in their home. So their home could be an assisted living, it could be a hospice inpatient unit, it could be a long-term care facility, it could be a group home, it could be their own residence. So that is their own home. So we're talking about senior care in their own home. So the accrediting bodies for senior care are going to be at the state level. So you'll have a survey from the state, which each state has its own um, Office of Healthcare Compliance, and those Department of Health regulators, those surveyors will come from there and do the survey. So that is different from the branch of compliance, which would be like the federal branch or the state branch of OIG, like the Office of Inspector General, who investigates fraud, who investigates abuse on a high level, on a large scale. So that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about accrediting bodies who come and do the physical surveys to ensure compliance and then either deem you as accredited, or if it's the state, they're going to license you. You know, you're going to pass your initial licensure survey or your annual survey. So for long-term care, it's an annual survey. For hospice, it's 3 years. So you'll have your own separate survey rotation. So the state will come and survey you, or if you become accredited, the accrediting body will come and survey you. So the accrediting bodies for home care are ACHC, JCAHO, or CHAP. So those are the three different accrediting bodies that you can go through for hospice, home health, private duty, palliative care, pharmacy, home medical equipment, dialysis, sleep centers. Those are all regulated by those three accrediting bodies. So those are the most common. We will talk about in the future the differences between those accrediting bodies, and that's a really common question. Which one should I go with? Who should I have as an accrediting body? Why should I get accredited? We'll answer all those questions later this week. But I just wanted to talk for a minute today about who those accrediting bodies are and what they do. So they each have their own standards based on the CMS regulations for care. So CMS creates for hospice COPs, which are the conditions of participation. And so, long-term care has something similar, which is the state operations manual, or the some people call it the watermelon book. There's a big book, a pink and green book. But either way, there are preset standards from the state and federal regulations that each industry has to follow. So you'll have federal regulations. Then on top of that are the state regulations. And then even on top of that are the accrediting bodies regulations. And theirs are called standards. So when you're surveyed by an accrediting body, you're defaulting to their standards of care and quality. And that's what their surveyors are going to come on site and survey you by. So, one example might be by a visit frequency. Often, let's use hospice as an example. Often there isn't a specific time frame maybe referenced in the conditions of participation for something, or there isn't a way that it's expected to be executed given in the COPs, and you just kind of as an organization have to figure out how to meet that. So what ACHC or CHAP or JCAHO does in their standards is they require the surveyor to provide evidence of how you've met the standard, and their standard is above and beyond that COP standard. So it may say how they expect to see that executed. It may say when they expect to see that executed, in what type of time frame, or they may go above and beyond and say that COP needs to be executed in a way above that. Their standard will be above the COP standard. So those are some ways that accrediting bodies measure quality, and that's why they do that. They have their standards that are based off of best practices. Higher level of care is provided. So, you know, if you applied that to another industry, let's say, you know, baking, we're not just going to bake a cake, we're going to use the best ingredients, or we're going to use organic ingredients, or it's going to be prepared in an allergen-free environment. You know, it's basically going from process to gourmet. So the COPs require us to follow a certain guideline based on the minimum necessary requirements to provide care to be licensed. The accrediting bodies are going to create standards that go above and beyond that to say this is the best quality provided at the highest standard of practice to ensure the best outcomes. So not only are you meeting your state and federal, but you're also meeting a higher standard of care. Now, when you default to state and federal, you're always going to go with whatever the more stringent is. Usually it's federal and then state and then accrediting body. But what they will look for is for the most stringent guideline and that you've met or exceeded that. They don't tell you how to do that. And a lot of the times I think as organizations, I see some overthinking happening there and putting in these processes that are impossible to follow consistently to try and meet whatever the state or federal or accrediting body guideline is. They don't tell you what the process has to be. So just because one organization has put a process in place, that doesn't mean it's going to work for another organization. And I'll talk more about processes and how to meet those standards later this week as we go through the compliance preparation for the Navigation to Compliance series. So feel free to put any questions in the comments and let me know who your accrediting body is and who you're being surveyed by. I know a lot of people have different experiences, and we'll talk about that and how to choose your accrediting body pretty soon. So thanks. Bye.